Well, first of all, Stephen, thank you very much for speaking with FandomWire today. You've got a very cool and interesting career, so I kind of wanted to start with that. How did you first know that you want to get into, film and stunt work?
Oh man, when I was a kid, I would actually annoy all of my friends because every day I would come to school and I would say that I wanted to be something like a fireman, and then another day I would change it and I would say I want to be a policeman, and then the next day I'd say I want to be a spy, and then the next day I said I'm going to be this. So I think I always had it in me that I wanted to play these different kind of roles. Uh,
Hmm.
like most actors, I was a theater kid, drama nerd, but I think the difference was that I also really loved martial arts growing up. My
Yeah,
father practiced kung fu growing up. And yeah, when The Matrix came out in way back in '99, that kind of lit the spark in my brain. I think I was in high school at that time. I don't think I know I was in high school at that time. Class of '99, what's up? But once I saw Keanu on the big screen and everybody was just embracing it, I thought to myself, boy, I would like to do that one day. And so that led me down the rabbit hole, ironically, right? Like Keanu
hmm
and Matrix led me down the rabbit hole of the OGs like Jackie Chan and Jet Li and Donnie Yen. So I got obsessed with martial arts growing up, and then it was during college that I really started getting into training really hard. And then after college, I was kind of faced with this choice of, okay, do I go into sort of like a normal job, or do I perhaps pursue the martial arts career? And what does that look
right.
like? And I thought maybe, oh, I would teach. And then, uh, my father at the time, he said, hey, if you really like acting, you should just try it. I'll support you until you're 30. He gave me until I was 30. He said, if you don't get one role by the time you're 30, then you should probably go try something else. So I kind
hmm
of melded the two, right? My love of martial arts and acting. And really, like most guys that are like myself, we all just want to be Bruce Lee. So I think that was my goal, right? Is I wanted to train up, get really good, and then make kung fu movies. And that is what led me into doing stunt work. Stunt
hmm
work is what led me into doing full-on acting. And so that was my journey.
Well, and I also found it very interesting that you said that, Keanu and The Matrix is one of your inspirations because you would later work on John Wick 3 Parabellum. So, kind of tell me about like what working on a film like that meant for you in your development as a stunt choreographer.
Yeah, as to work with one of your idols is they always say never meet your heroes, but I do encourage everyone to meet Keanu because he is amazing. And for John Wick 3, that was sort of a reunion for me.
hmm
Keanu probably doesn't remember. He meets so many people, but I worked
hmm
with him on 47 Ronin way back in, I think,
hmm
2011 or something. We were doing sword fighting for a samurai movie, right? And
hmm
so to come back and see him again and fight him on John Wick, which is now one of the most
It's
preeminent
an
action,
incredible.
yeah, like
Yeah.
preeminent action franchise. Really great, really amazing time. Obviously, everybody at 87 North are super talented martial artists. So anyone who's in martial arts, anyone who wants to do stunts, anyone who wants to do acting, action acting, they know
hmm
87 North and they know Chad Stahelski and Dave
hmm
Leach and those guys. So Jonathan Eusebio, all those guys. So to be able to work with them, is just really awesome.
Well, and now obviously this last few weeks and months, we've seen you a lot on screen in Star Wars, but this was not even your first exposure in the Star Wars universe. So, kind of tell us about how you first got involved working with the Star Wars team at Lucasfilm.
Well, I was doing some work with Legacy Effects, which created
Hmm
a lot of their suits and creature effects for their shows. And what happened was I had done work with Lucasfilms through, mocap. I had done.
Hmm.
video game stuff. I had did fight training with Adam Driver, thanks to my very good friend Liang Yang, who is an amazing
Hmm.
stunt coordinator himself out in England. So they needed some help in America, so obviously I'm here. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll help train Adam Driver for Force Awakens. So
That's very
that
cool.
meant, yeah, right. And that was before Star Wars became super in your face with movies and TV shows. There were video games, but it didn't hit the critical mass that it has now. So that was a very special time because obviously they were starting up the new trilogy, and it was
Hmm.
it was new and exciting. So that was really cool to be able to see that firsthand. And to get onto like Book of Boba Fett and then now Skeleton Crew, again, that was because I was working with Legacy Effects. Uh, they liked how I worked. Obviously, I auditioned to be uh, Brutus, who is the
Hmm.
Weston Wolfman in Skeleton Crew. I didn't
Yeah.
know what the creature looked like. I just knew that, hey, he's going to be the main baddie. Uh,
Hmm.
and Legacy kind of put your name in to do the audition. So Lucasfilm liked it and approved, and here we are. So, anytime I'm able to work on the Star Wars universe, I always feel like, could you just call me back again? Because I always want to play in it, right? Same thing with John Wick, same thing with any of these franchises, like, oh, please call me back. So it's
Yeah.
very humbling, and I feel an immense sense of gratitude to be able to always, be able to like say yes if they
Hmm.
call. Yeah.
Well, what's the most difficult thing about performing a character like Brutus? Because you are under makeup and costume and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of tell us what's the most difficult part of that aspect for you?
Sure. Well, all my credit goes out to the puppeteers at Legacy Effects. Uh,
Hmm.
I don't think they get enough credit. All the robots that are walking around, you literally have an operator holding this 80, 90 pound thing, and you have a team of people also working on the face, doing the
Hmm.
animatronics. So I had a team of people working, controlling the face mechanism underneath the wolf costume. I had the
Hmm.
costumers obviously helping with everything, and gosh, there was so much accoutrements on Brutus. And as far as working on it, I'll be completely honest, it was probably 2 to 3 months of complete darkness because you put
Oh
on the mask.
God.
Yeah, and it's not for anyone who's claustrophobic. You put on the
Hmm.
mask, you have animatronic gyros literally crunching your face. You have two little eye holes that move down, they shift.
Hmm.
So I was completely blind for the entire show. In fact, when I met Jude Law for the first time, I didn't know it was him. I couldn't see anything. I was just standing about to do the scene, and I hear
Hmm.
this very nice English voice. They're saying, "Wow, that's an amazing suit." I thought it was a producer just kind of examining the suit, and he goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, my name is Jude." And I went, "What do you mean your name is Jude? I know who you are. You're Jude Law." So I'm blind and I'm freaking out, and all he sees is a wolf guy like hugging him. But that was challenging.
Hmm.
We had a fight scene that got cut, but there was also, the physicality where I have to literally
Hmm.
push Jude's face into a glass wall, and
Yeah.
things like that. Little things like I have to shoot my laser blaster, or I have to pick up a
Mhm.
coin. Like, you know how hard it is to pick up something from the ground when you can't see, and you have a latex glove claw, right?
Hmm.
Like it was just like I said, it was madness, but ultimately the finished product looked incredible, and
Yeah,
I'm
it truly does.
yeah.
Well, and you've also recently stepped out behind some of these suits. You were in Twisters. What did that kind of mean for you to be out in front of the camera and not necessarily just being in a stunt role?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the dream, right?
Hmm.
I've been trying to ever since like 2011. I was trying to transition from doing stunts and stunt performing to just strictly acting and action acting. So
Hmm.
obviously, I was doing TV. I was doing a few movies here and there, dying in the latest Terminator, things of that nature, right? And
Yeah.
so to be able to, have a role on a giant movie like Twisters, where
Hmm.
I'm acting, but I'm also doing cool action stuff. Like we were driving,
Hmm.
drifting around on the dirt for 3 months in Oklahoma, tearing up cornfields, stuff like that. It was an amazing experience, and I will always thank Lee Isaac Chung for
Hmm.
remembering me because he directed an episode of Skeleton Crew, and he was very loyal to a lot of the crew members. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so he remembered me for this role because they needed an actor that could also do action stuff. And they said I was the first one that they remembered. So, Isaac and Doug, his producing partner, I will always thank them because they gave me the opportunity to audition for Twisters. And, I get Twisters, and I feel like
Hmm.
that kind of led into other stuff that's happening now. So,
Yeah.
my heart goes out. Yeah.
Well, I'll say one other huge credit that I think a lot of people may not realize that you had, but our fandom definitely will, are the Spider-Man video games. Those are two of the greatest games I've ever played, period.
Oh.
So, kind of tell us about the process of making a game like that, especially with the mocap and what that means for you as an actor.
Absolutely. Actually, again, not to sound like a broken record, but all I have is gratitude for Insomniac Games,
Mm-hmm.
because I had done a lot of mocap work as a stunt performer leading up to then. I
Hmm.
done cinematics for Blur Studio with Tim Miller, right, who
Yeah.
directed Deadpool. I was doing a lot of motion capture with Phil Silvera, their stunt coordinator, but never really doing face capture, never being the character, right? And so I auditioned for Spider-Man 1 way back, I think it was 2014, something like that. Didn't
Yeah.
even know, I knew it was for a Spider-Man game, but I didn't know at the time how huge Spider-Man as a franchise for the video games was, because there was
Hmm.
obviously that long hiatus between the last game and their rebooting of the franchise. So, I go in, and originally Mr. Negative was kind of envisioned as the introductory uh, player boss that the player
Right.
would have to fight to get to know the controls, right?
Hmm.
But once we did the audition and they started fleshing out the story, they took it in a different path, and they really bumped up Mr. Negative to be obviously one of the two main baddies in that game. Uh,
Yep.
so again, I'm grateful for that as well. And they didn't have to use my face, but they did, right?
Hmm.
They did the whole performance. So that was the game that put me on the map when it comes to video games and voiceover work. I didn't even have a voiceover agent before Spider-Man. So I was only doing TV and film. I wasn't really doing voice and video games in that nature. So Insomniac and Spider-Man opened up all those doors. And Spider-Man 2,
Hmm.
incredible. I thought it was just going to be a cameo, but they had a full-fledged story arc,
Yeah,
character
an
arc.
important story too. Yeah.
Yeah, with Miles, and I love all those actors.
Hmm.
Yuri was one of the first, I think, big time video game cartoon voice actor that I met,
Hmm.
and I was a little intimidated because, like I said, I had worked on film and TV, so I know how to operate in that world, but I didn't know how the video game world worked, what that looked like. But Yuri was very gracious and very kind, so made me feel right at home. And yeah, we just hit the ground running, and it is what it is. And I really appreciate the fans recognizing me from Spider-Man. I mean, I get that on
Hmm.
film sets sometimes where people are like, hey, even on Twister, some people are like, hey, you're Mr. Negative, right? And I'm like, yo, you realize there are like 15 A-listers over here, right? Why are you talking to little old me? But Spider-Man obviously had a huge impact on people.
But
So.
I say it's such a good game, and your character is so integral to and so unique because we also haven't seen Mr. Negative in film yet. So it is something that you really take away from that game. You've seen Doc Ock or some of the other characters before, but never Mr. Negative, and it's such a cool character design, and everything about it is so awesome.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I will carry that with me forever.
mhm,
Like whatever happens with the live action stuff. People always say that they want to play this character, that character.
mhm,
At this point I have to say, okay, it is what it is. I give it, it's the public domain. I give it to the
yeah,
fans, right? But I will always cherish the fact that, yeah, the very first time you saw Mr. Negative in such a big fashion, right?
Hmm.
Like, such big media, that he looked like that, that it was that characterization.
Hmm.
I'm very happy about that.
Well, and then we're wrapping up. So one of the big things you have on the horizon is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning,
Yeah,
which everybody is just a buzz about. Going to be one of the biggest films of 2025. We have to ask,
yeah.
one, what is it like to work with Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie on an action just spectacle like that? But two, can you give us any hints for where we should start to look for you in that movie?
Oh, I actually don't even know where you would start to look for me in that movie
Hmm.
in terms of time, but I can say that working with Tom and working with McHugh,
Hmm.
that was a whole nother level. I mean, the
Hmm.
level of detail, the precision, the vision that they have, it was very inspiring. I
Hmm.
feel like also they're the most gracious and professional directors and actors out there.
Hmm.
uh, I'll just give you McHugh. He'll bring people behind the monitor, and he'll literally teach you, anyone, right, on the set. He'll
Hmm.
teach you what is going on. He'll teach you about lenses. He'll teach you. So the fact that and Tom will do the same thing. They'll
Yeah.
explain why they're shooting, what they're shooting, if you have a question, and they're very open about that. They even let me take my wife and my mother to set, right? And my wife
That's
was able
awesome.
to sit on set and watch Tom Cruise do acting, do his acting. So
Hmm.
again, I'm always thankful to McHugh and Tom for that. I told them to their face, and I'll say it right here to everybody else. They operate on the highest level, so
Hmm.
everybody else brings up their A game when they're on set as well. And last funny story about Tom. This is how
Okay.
gracious he is. I had just gotten married. I was at a fancy restaurant with my wife and my new father-in-law and their
Hmm.
family. And so I was trying to impress my new father-in-law. And this was a Friday night at some fancy restaurant in London. And out of nowhere, I'm waiting for the table, and I feel two hands slap my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Tom Cruise and
Oh my
Chris
God.
McQuarrie, correct? And they just so happen to be eating. This is their favorite restaurant, I guess, and so
Hmm.
they're eating at the same exact time. So I freak out. They go to their table, and in the middle of the dinner, Tom Cruise comes to our table and says, "All right, let's take pictures," right? Because he knows I want to take pictures. He takes pictures with my family-in-law, my wife, everybody.
Hmm.
He's so gracious. Everybody in the restaurant is like, "Is Tom going to do this for everyone?" And at the end of the meal, at the dinner, Tom secretly paid for all our dinner of
Oh,
like
that's
eight,
so nice. Yeah.
nine people. Yeah, I was like, "What? This dude? What the So, that was my Mission Impossible experience.
That's an incredible story. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Stephen.
Thank you.
You're clearly going to be very visible for us a lot in the next few years. So just keep up the great work. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's incredible stuff so far.
Thank you so much. It was awesome talking to you.